and welcome to this conference presented by the MS Focus Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. I'm Cherie Binns, and I'm the Patient Healthcare Liaison for the MS Focus. And I'm joined tonight by three couples who have agreed to talk to you about how MS as a diagnosis has impacted their relationships or helped them to be stronger or smoother, or however they choose to describe that. We do have one couple that is trying to join us at the moment. Eric and Christina are still not quite on our line right now, but we would just welcome you and ask that you welcome Teresa and Marvin and Kara and Scott, and also Eric and Christina are joining us tonight. We have a webinar that we did similar to this last year that is on our Facebook page, the Multiple Sclerosis, not Facebook page, the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation YouTube page. I'm so sorry. So you'll get three other couples' views on some of these same questions and issues. So I'm going to let Teresa and Marvin start this with an introduction of themselves and a little bit about the MS journey and their relationship and how it may have impacted that relationship. Oh, Eric, do you have Christina with you? You do. Is there any way you can switch your screen sideways instead of vertically?
Okay.
Are you on a desktop or your cell phone?
On the cell phone, I can turn it.
Yeah, turn the cell phone sideways. Other way. You're not on auto rotate on the cell phone, I think. Oh, there you go. All right, now. And can we sort of, there we are. Christina, is there any way you can get a little bit closer, because we're not seeing you at all?
There's any way you can move a little bit closer.
We're sorry, folks. We'll get this ironed out.
No problem. Try to angle it a little bit.
There we go. Now we've got Christina and not quite Eric.
Yeah.
As long as when you're talking, if you could just shift the phone a little bit, so whichever one of you is speaking, we'll be able to hear. But we'll start this by letting Teresa and Marvin introduce themselves and tell a little bit of their story.
All right.
Hello, everyone. I am Teresa, and this is Marvin.
How you doing, people?
And in multiple sclerosis came into our lives in 2014. We had been married already. We were already care partners to one another. Marvin was already my care partner because I am a congenital heart disease survivor. So we've been on this patient journey and this care partnership journey for some time. And although we've had some challenges along the way with our health and my health, I believe that it strengthened our journey. And I do believe that we truly are stronger together. And I hope as we go through the night in the program, you'll learn more about our story and what keeps us together and what keeps us solid and strong, even through the twists and turns of chronic illness. So I'll let Marvin speak now in case he has anything to add, but we're really excited to be here and talk to you all about such a very important topic as care partnership.
As I wanted to piggyback what my wife has just said. As she said, she was a heart survivor when I first met her. And so I was prepared for that situation of dealing with her heart situation, because as a child, she had heart surgery. So I knew there was going to be a journey of medical situations that, and that I didn't have experience with. But as we grew together, I became accustomed to her situation. But then in 2014, when she was diagnosed with MS, it was shocking, very shocking. I had to prepare myself for another journey. And even though I feel, riding with the journey with her through her heart situation, it kind of emboldened me for the fact that I was prepared for any other adversity that might face us. So I became, I think, emboldened by this situation. So we're going to ride this journey forever. I got a few things. I'm going to have some input for the future. If there's any caregivers that may have to deal with the situation where I had, where you're not prepared, I will try to prepare you in that aspect. But this situation of us being strong together is, I have something for you. Let me finish. Okay. Here's what I wanted to just suggest to the care partners. I always focus on the 3 Ps that I have established in my life with her, and that's poise, patience, and perseverance. And I will add to that as we go through the program what exactly that means. I'll let the other couple speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. Kara and Scott, why don't you take it away?
All right. Hi, my name is Kara. This is my husband, Scott.
Hi.
We've been married for 26 years. MS came into our relationship 11 years ago. We were already parents at that time and had, busy lives and just raising kids and all that good stuff. And then we had a bit of a curveball. I am actually an attorney who coincidentally decided to go into health law and mostly represent physicians. So for me, it was suddenly the people that I had been giving advice to, I was now asking advice of. And it was a real role reversal for me to be in that position. But I, just look back now, and the amount that we've learned in the past 11 years is shocking. And happily, we've learned a lot of trial and error. There's no real one path. I think for us, it's a fluid disease. I say it's a sneak attack disease because some days I'm fine and then some days I'm not. And it's really difficult to anticipate what's coming next. And as a self-proclaimed control freak, that is very difficult. But we've done a lot of work and we've really gotten to a good place. And it's no longer, as scary as it was in the beginning. And I am just so grateful for all the resources that we have and all that we've learned about it and continue to learn as it continues to morph and change as we go along. Do you want to add your stuff?
Yeah, I'm actually a physician. I didn't know much about MS. It's not my center of practice or anything, but so I've been learning on the job with Kara, as she said. And I think for us, it has really brought us closer together because it's anytime you go through a struggle or difficult things, you tend to form a stronger bond. And I like the 3 Ps that were mentioned earlier. I think patience and perseverance are huge parts of it. We've, like Kara said, we sort of trial and error things to see what sort of works for her and what prevents flare-ups. And we've sort of switched our lives a little bit, but tried not to drastically change things, but definitely we've made little adjustments. We moved from the house that had a lot of stairs to a condo with no stairs and an elevator, so we don't have to think about getting up and down stairs all the time, and moved to a place where we didn't have to drive very much, where she doesn't have to drive very much. Everything's very close to us. So, I mean, we've made changes, and I'm sure we'll continue to make changes as things evolve. But it's I think it's certainly helpful to have somebody by your side and going through the journey.
Thank you. I forgot I was on mute for a second. Okay, well, take it away, Eric and Christina. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having us on tonight, this afternoon. What was the question you wanted us to do?
I'd love for the two of you to introduce yourselves and to tell a little bit of your story in 7 to 10 minutes.
All right. I'll let my wife go first.
Okay, I am Christina Nelson. I am a wife, obviously, and a mother. I have 3 grown children, 2 beautiful bonus children, and almost 6 grandchildren. And I am an IT professional. I still work full time, thank God. I have a talk show called The Christina Nelson Show, Motivate, Inspire, and Heal, in which most of my guests have been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and Teresa was on my show, and we talk about anything to motivate, inspire, and heal everyone else that is around us and listening. And it was a wonderful show. And let's see, I was diagnosed 2001. I woke up one morning, no feeling in my feet or my legs. I thought that I could stand up and shake it off, and it didn't happen. I went to the doctor. The doctor she didn't know what to say. So she told me to go to a neurologist. I went to the neurologist. I had a series of tests, and they said, you may have multiple sclerosis. And I said, no way. And so I went for a second opinion, and a second opinion doctor took more tests and MRIs, and finally a spinal tap, which was the worst because I got that awful headache you get when you don't lay down long enough. And shortly afterwards, they diagnosed me with MS. I was relieved at first, but then I was also anxious because I didn't know what to do, what this next step was. I knew Richard Pryor, I knew Montel Williams, and that is it. And that is all. Near next.
All right. So I am Eric Nelson. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2014. I worked for a law firm for 22 years in the Washington, D.C. area. And at the time, I was looking to make a career change. I was also a licensed minister at the time. And so I was in the gym, and I was trying to I had a workout where I was doing 1,000 push-ups a day. So I made it up to 900 push-ups. And my left hand gave out, and I fell, and it happened a couple of times. So to make the long story short, I went to the emergency room a few weeks later, and through so many tests, they finally diagnosed me in August of 2014 with multiple sclerosis. And one other thing before I stop, I also started a ministry for people that were diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So as of this Sunday, we will be celebrating 7 years as a ministry.
Now, how long have the two of you been married?
We've been married for going on 3 years.
January 11th,
January 11th.
2020, right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
I heard a rumor that you guys met at an MS support group or function. Is that correct?
That's correct. We actually met physically. We met on Facebook in that support group, and then we met finally face to face at an MS event that I held in Maryland.
He fell head over heels in love with me. So, love at first sight.
That's neat. And Teresa and Marvin, I don't think you mentioned how long you'd been married.
No, we forgot that part, but it's been
18
18
years.
years.
18 years, and Kara and Scott is 28 years, you said?
26.
26 years. All right, may feel like 28 some days.
We'll
Um,
consider that.
A question, I'll let you guys jump in if you can answer this, but have any of you had issues with care that the other has needed to help with? As far as, I know that there have been injuries in my past where David's had to help me with things like transfers or that sort of thing. I've never really needed his help for personal care, but I'm wondering if that's something that maybe you've had to learn to work around or work through with your relationship.
Us for sure. In 2020, it started when I fell and I broke my toe. And from that point on, because of the pandemic, I wasn't able to get around like I have been. And so it limited my mobility. And because of the limitations, not being able to move around, go out the house because of the pandemic, some of the MS issues as far as mobility, fatigue kicked in a little bit. So my wife became more than just a wife. She had to end up becoming a caregiver as well.
And Christina, how did that impact the way you saw Eric? Or did it?
It didn't. I really, being both of us diagnosed with MS, we knew that these things could happen. Like, it wasn't like, we were married and then one of us got diagnosed and then the other one. We went in knowing we were both diagnosed with MS. We went in knowing that there may be a time where I may have to care for him or I. And it happened, and I didn't see it. It was a privilege to be able to serve my husband in that way. I remember it was a resistance because he didn't want me to at first. He was like, no, I got it. And I think one day I just said, no, you don't have it. I'm going to help you. And from then on, it kept going. And I didn't mind. I don't mind helping my husband who will do it. He moved up here from Maryland to New Jersey. He knows no one but me and my family. And who else are we going to have? And who better than to do it?
Mhm.
Do Edith, Kara?
I'm so sorry. I was going to say, like you, Cherie, I had a series of injuries. I had a series of falls that resulted in fracture after fracture. And I had about a 6-month period where I had to exclusively use a wheelchair. And I had never had that vantage point before. And everything in my house suddenly looked very scary and very unsafe. With all the stairs and even my shower, I had already had like a little built-in bench, but had never actually used it. It was decorative, and that became so incredibly helpful. And just to have a walk-in shower at the time that we built the house, I thought it was pretty, and it ended up being unbelievably useful. And I think that experience for us, at least for me, made me look at things differently and assess risks differently based on my mobility or lack thereof on any given day. And so for me, again, the self-proclaimed control freak, it was incredibly difficult to have somebody, he quite literally washed my hair, this stuff that I was not capable of doing. And it was incredibly humbling for me to be in that position, but I was so incredibly grateful that this was the partner that I chose all those years ago, before any of this was even remotely on my radar. because, you know, I tease him. We met when we were in school, so he wasn't a real doctor yet and all that stuff. So I gently rib him about that kind of stuff, but I actually was truly cared for medically by him. And that was a real different feel for me, at least. I don't know how it was for you.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I was happy to help and be there for her. I mean, that was probably the first major health issue that we went through. You know, even just going up and down the stairs, she would have to sit on the stair and sort of push back one stair at a time so, you know, we would basically make one trip up and down a day. But yeah, just being non-weight bearing for that long, you really need a lot of help, you know, in a lot of different ways. And, you know, it was hard for me to see her like that, you know, getting used to sort of, like I said, that was sort of the first major health thing. But, you know, certainly was very happy to help. And, you know, that was one of the sort of a bonding thing for us, going through that and persevering through that. And, you know, probably set us up for things going down the, you know, as we've gone down the road and, you know, face new challenges that have come up over time. So.
I like to jump in as well. I would like to say, I have chronic pain with my multiple sclerosis and also a permanent injury. So I'm in pain a lot. And some days my pain is just debilitating. And in addition to that, I have flare-ups. So there are days and time where I may need help getting out of bed, where I may need help putting on my shoes, even where you know, my husband will have to help me walk to the bathroom. So those for me, they were and they continue to be very humbling experiences. And in addition to being humbling experiences, it really makes me realize, and it just makes me very grateful that when we took our vows in sickness and in health, for better or for worse, like they are more than just words. I also like to share what I learned from the care that Marvin gives me and the care that he provides. I was in a very difficult situation, probably the past 2 years, because I had 2 sick parents. But what I learned from that, and then of course I was a part of their care partner and team. And what that did is it made me realize some of the things that my husband goes through, some of the emotions that he experiences. And I can see it sometimes even when he doesn't say it, like if I'm really not feeling well or I'm really not doing well, he wears it. And I know he feels, you know, a way because there's nothing he can do about it. And when you love someone, you want to do everything you can to help them to make it better. And if I don't get any other message across tonight, what I would like to say to other care partners and other people living with chronic illness is, you know, just having someone to be there and to go through the thick of it, that makes all the difference. Not sometimes, that makes all the difference.
I just want to add to that. Care partners are ancillaries of our medical warriors. So everything intertwines. So when she's in pain, I'm you know, directly in pain, I'm indirectly in pain. So I can feel what she's going through. I'm going through the same thing. If it's not directly, it's indirectly. And as she said, she goes through her flare-ups. I mean, she needs all the assistance she can get to get her to the bathroom. If I have to take her somewhere, I have to drive her somewhere. I mean, we're fairly active. Matter of fact, we're very active to a certain degree. And once you flare up, of course, you can't be active, you know, and it impedes on our daily activities when she goes through her flare up. So, you know, it's sometimes very difficult to see her suffer through this situation when we know she wants to be so active and she can't be. She likes to go to the gym, and when she's unable to do that, she can't do it. And I mean, like I said, our pain intertwines. So when she goes through it, I'm going through it. And I'm sure all the other care partners are doing the same thing. They're going through the same thing as I am. So I'm not the only one, I understand, but it's very difficult. It's a difficult situation, but we stay strong. That's one of my doctrines when I say having poise, having patience and perseverance. You persevere. You know, when you have a bad day, the next day you hope is a better day. And that's how you persevere through all this medical journey.
Thank you. You know, I find that I've been through this process now for over 40 years with MS. Dave and I have been married nearly 48 years. And I know that there have been times when it's felt to me like this trough that I'm in, maybe I've been in, not feeling well for months at a time, was my new normal. And, you know, I know now that there are things that I've been able to do to change that or to change my perception of that. But I found that I was piling a lot of guilt on top of me for not being as much of a physical partner to David as I felt like I wanted to be. Sex was not in the forefront a lot of the time because I felt so badly, and I felt badly for him because it wasn't being offered to him more. But one of the things that I found in that process was that if I could communicate with him and he with me about the way that we felt about that, maybe make some changes, we were able to be there for each other in new ways or better ways or slightly tweaked ways. And I'm just wondering if any of you have, maybe I've opened a can of worms that I didn't need to open, but I'm wondering if maybe any of you have experienced intimacy difficulties in your relationship that you've had to deal with and how you did that.
So I wouldn't necessarily say difficulties, but I will say that, you know, when you don't feel well, you don't feel well. So the point that I like to get across is sex is a very important part of relationships, but we know that that is not the only part of a relationship. And we also know that sex and intimacy are different. And I think this speaks to your point, Cherie. There are times when you may not be as active as you may have been previously, or there may be moments where, you know, you have a flare up or you just don't feel well. If you don't feel well, you don't feel sexy. You just don't feel, you know, a lot of different things. And what you realize is that intimacy is very different than the actual act of sex. So I can offer my husband intimacy, and we can offer each other intimacy. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the actual act of sex. And I think that these are important topics to discuss because, you know, we know that there are some issues that people not only with multiple sclerosis, but other chronic illnesses develop, and they may not be as sexual as they once were, or as active as they once were, but it's the intimacy that ties a couple together and that maintains the relationship. That's the power of connection.
And mentioning connection, if you have the connection, you'll continue to have the affection.
We definitely agree, with what you guys shared. And just to add to that, intimacy is, it trumps the whole sexual act. And the one thing that I learned that as I was listening to Teresa and Marvin, as each other's caregiver, as a spouse to someone who is diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, the one thing that I try to do is I try to make her feel pretty. You know what I'm saying? So even though because of MS, she may not feel important, she may not feel sexy. I try to make her feel sexy. I tell her that she's sexy. I tell her that she's beautiful. And I believe in the power of the tongue. And I believe in speaking that and sharing that with her and letting her know she can't move. But I just have to look at the corner of my eye. But I do believe that as a caregiver and as a man, just being able to let her know that, to make her feel, because as a support group leader myself, I see and I've talked to so many men and women that have lost their marriages because of this topic right here. And this has been a marriage killer. And so one of the things that I try to do is I try to lead by example, and I try to make sure that she's loved. And by me doing that, I try to tell her that not just once a week, but every day. And so there are days when she may not feel as sexy, and I can tell. And sometimes she would say, "You like me because I'm with the rollator, or I have this," and I said, "Absolutely." It doesn't change. When I saw her when I first married, wanted to be with her, I didn't see MS. I saw her as a person, and I think that's where if you're in a relationship and you focus just on the MS part, I mean, there's no room for the three of us. It's me and her. We the ones who was at the altar that got married, not me, her, and MS. So although we both were diagnosed with MS is not the forefront, or not to welcome in our home. So I just try to encourage her in that way. And I think as caregivers, as husbands and wives, I think we should also do the same.
Absolutely. And he does exactly what he just said he does. And there's times when MS, it took a lot from me as far as feeling pretty. There's times when my feet are so swollen, I can't get them into shoes, and I can't get, socks. And I feel like I just don't feel great about myself. And I'll walk around and have swollen feet around, and he's like, "Well, you look sexy with feet." And I'm like, what? What do you say? Like, if I'm racing, this is, we have bladder issues, and I'm racing to the bathroom, and I'm like, got this rollator, and the rollator's ahead of me, and I'm just trying to go, butt sticking out, and I'm like, "Oh, I gotta go." And he's like, "You need any help in there?" I got you, girl. I got your sexy self. And I'm like, but it feels good. It feels good to hear someone has my back like that, and with all the stuff that's going on in the world today, you need that laugh, that laughter, that you know, the joking around and actually knowing that he really is sincere when he says, that I'm beautiful or that I look good. And I can be coming out the bathroom with my hair sticking up all over the place and no makeup and no wearing a t-shirt and uh compression socks. He still says I'm beautiful. So
Kara and Scott, did you want to weigh in on this topic?
Sure. I think we're completely on board with everything that you guys have said. Intimacy is huge. Communication is huge. One thing I will say, specifically with regards to sex, that I see in some of the support groups, I think sometimes we have a habit of attributing everything to MS, but I'm in my 50s. My husband's in his 50s. You could have hormonal issues. You could have other things that have nothing to do with this neurologic issue that, yes, we deal with, but it's also, I think, really important just to see if your libido has completely left the room. Maybe just check and see what your hormones look like and if you need to supplement, or if you have issues with swinging from the chandeliers, shall we say. There's toys, there's aids, there's all different sorts of things. And if our children watch this, I'm sure they're going to be like, sexual health is health, and it's an important thing, and it's a nice way to reconnect. And,
Right.
when it works, it's fabulous. And even when it doesn't work, you're with somebody who loves you, who knows that you're struggling to get to the bathroom real quick, who knows that I couldn't brush my hair today, so it's kinky and just deal with it, and it's up and I have no makeup on and the rest of it. But to Cherie's point too, before you jumped into the sex conversation, I was going somewhere else with this. I feel bad that I can't physically keep up with him. When we do, we take vacations or we're with the kids and we're doing these, exertional things. Some days I'm great and I'm like 5 miles, come on guys, let's go. And other days, that's it. I'm on the couch or in the bed or, something. And for me, I feel bad. He never makes me feel bad, but I feel guilty that I can't be first in line every single day and, front and center. Like we once were.
Good point. I know that one of the things that for me has impacted the intimacy issues is mood. There are those of us living with MS have a far higher rate of depression or anxiety than the general population. And I know that when I've been depressed, it's been very, very difficult to be fully there for my husband. And I suspect that each of you three couples has had to deal with that to a degree in your relationship at one time or another. And I'm wondering if any of you have tricks or tips to realize that the other's there, that they're not as healthy as they should be or want to be mentally or emotionally. And if so, how do you move beyond that? How do you call it to attention lovingly so that you can both move beyond that?
wow.
That's a tough question, isn't it?
For us, we're motivated.
So
So what we do is we push each other. So when I can, by me spending so much time with her, I can tell and sense and discern when she's down or when something is not right. So I know Christina has a habit of nothing's wrong, and nothing's wrong, and then later on it'll come out, knowing that I already know something that's not right. So sometimes you just have to get into the habit of learning your mate and learn how to change the atmosphere. You know what I'm saying? So what's making her feel depressed? What's making her feel down? And so I try to change the atmosphere. I try to change the mood, in the house. Again, it goes back to intimacy, and to be able to communicate. That's important also, and just learning how to talk. What's going on? Let's sit down. Let's talk about it. And that's how we hash out um, everything, basically.
You have to, like he said, know one another. I also can tell when there's something bothering him. He's more of the talker. He's more of the, I need to talk to you, like, let's talk about it right now. And I'm more of the, let me sit on it for a little while. I need, I can get into a woe is me at times, just kind of like feeling down about something. It could be anything from being on social media and seeing my girlfriends out on a trip and doing all these things that I wish I could be doing right now. I saw, a couple of my girlfriends, they were in Cancun or something like that for a party, and I'm looking into all the things that they're doing, and I kind of got sad. I got in my feelings a little bit because I'm thinking to myself, wow, I would love to be there right now doing all of those things, but I know that being there would require everyone to be trying to take care of, like, you get into this mood. And he knew it. He's like, you're looking at those pictures, right? You're looking at your friends, you're wishing you were there. Yeah, I am, man. Like, I want to do those things again. I want to take those trips and um, you know, get into the pool, get into the ocean and swim with dolphins like they were showing. And I, knowing that I'm limited, uh, it frustrated me, and just, among other things. But I also know when he's upset about something, we have cried together at times where we cry, like both of us crying about something that happened. He is not a crier, but when he does, I know something is wrong. I know something is really wrong. And we have gotten to the point where we will just hug it out and cry with each other and talk about it with each other, and not so much offering the solution to whatever's going on, but just talk, like, listen to me. I need you to just listen to me right now. And I just want him to listen to him without offering the solution, so to speak.
So I think about the last 2 years that I've had specifically, and they have been really tumultuous. So I am the kind of woman who literally wears her heart on her sleeves. Like, I wear my emotions. Um, but I also believe, for me, and I think in our marriage, sometimes we have to give space to that darkness. Sometimes you have to sit with it and process it. And I've given myself a lot of grace to do that, because every day is not a great day. Every day I don't feel like happy and I'm a warrior and I'm going to beat this. I just don't feel that every day. I'm just being honest. I have those woe is me moments, and I'm okay with those moments. Marvin knows when I'm there for an extended period of time, and he knows how to act, or how to not even pull me out, but redirect. Because I think that for me and my journey, my entire journey with chronic illness, there have been very life-changing lessons that I learned in the Valley season. So I would love to say that, no, I'm not sad or I don't get depressed. I would love to say those things, but I do, it does happen. When I'm in pain, just reconciling that you have these challenges, it tests your will. But what I do know about myself and my life is I know who I believe in, I know who I belong to, I know why I'm here. And just as my husband so gracefully said a little while ago, hope. I know that if I could just make it through this moment, then maybe I can make it through the next day. So I think for me, when I am sad and depressed and anxious, sometimes I have to identify that, and sometimes I have to give it space. And I also have to say, if it gets to be too difficult for anyone who is listening, there is help. Sometimes we have to get help. I believe in prayer, but I believe in therapy too. And I think that it's all important just to persevere through this journey. And I think, and I am more than just the chronic illness journey, but just the journey of life, period.
We've got about 15 more minutes of our time left. Did you, Kara and Scott, want to add anything on that topic, or shall we move to question and answer?
I mean, I'll just briefly echo what has been said. I mean, we've been together, married 26 years, but we've probably known each other more than 30. And Kara tends to try to be stoic with this. And, having been around so long, I can tell when something's wrong. And being intuitive and being able to pick up on that, I also can sort of read the room. And sometimes she likes to maybe just talk it out and give my medical opinion, or, discuss what's bothering her. And maybe I'll have to reassure, you've gone through a flare like this before, it'll pass. But sometimes it's, like they said, it's a redirection or a distraction. Let's go walk the dog. Let's talk about a trip we're going to take to see the kids in next month or something. So depending, we have different ways, I guess, to deal with it, and it just sort of depends on the time and how I sort of, in my impression of how she's handling it, or maybe how she wants to deal with it at that time. And sometimes I'm wrong, we jump to the other way, but there's, we try to use different ways different coping skills and things we've learned over the years.
Thank you. I think we can open this to questions at this point. So there are a couple of ways you can ask your questions. If you hover your mouse over the center of the bottom of your screen, you'll see some bubbles pop up. You can put a question into the chat. You can also ask in the question and answer section. Or if you scroll over to raise your hand in the center bottom of the screen, Bhavya will unmute you and we can go ahead and let you ask your question personally. If there's a couple that has said something that you'd like clarified or want a little bit more information on it, feel free to direct it to an individual or a couple. So go ahead and tick your questions in at some point. And while people are doing that, there was one other thing. I'm wondering if you as individuals with MS recognize when you're dealing with something where you need a break or a rest period or a change of scene, or if it's your partner that tends to know you well enough that they're recognizing it and redirecting you. I mean, I know my body, but I tend not to listen to it when I'm immersed in something. And David often is the one that cues me that I need to take a break or cool off or hydrate or something of that nature. So we don't have any questions popping in yet. So if anyone wants to answer that, I would love to hear your input.
For sure. For sure. My husband is the one that always has to tell me to sit down. And sometimes he has to actually forcefully sit down somewhere because I'm always like doing stuff and doing stuff. And I'm the type that has to make sure everything is done just so before I go to bed, before I leave the house, everything just needs to be a certain way. And my husband's always like, just sit down. Like, really, nobody's even coming over. Like, you're going to be at work all day. I'm here. No one's here. Like, why does everything have to be perfect? And go sit down. Or when there is times I've gotten these migraines, and he knows that what happens when I don't eat. And if I'm walking around, I haven't eaten yet, and he's like, you know what's going to happen, right? Could you go sit down, eat a banana or something, like do something? What is wrong with you? He's the one that kind of is that sounding board for me, or not the sounding board, but he's the one that will tell me, you need to sit down, you need to rest, you need to do this or that. And you know, that calming voice.
I think I would say the same. I tend to push myself a lot. And I think what has happened to me is my mind wants to keep going, but sometimes my body can't. And Marvin will tell me, you have to slow down, or you have to rest, or you're going to send yourself into a flare, or tomorrow is going to be worse. And when I think it was Carol who said this, when you are used to kind of controlling your environment, and you live with chronic illness, there's an amount of control you have to relinquish. And I know for me, I don't go willingly. But I have learned that when I don't listen, then my body, it has the final say, because it literally will say, okay, you didn't listen to me now, so now I'm making you. And Marvin often, he can see things before they happen to me. Or even if I don't feel well, there have been times that I just didn't feel well, that I just still continue to push myself. And Marvin is like, okay, that's enough. Like, just relax.
Yeah, just to add to that, like I said before, we like to stay active. And there's times when she wanted to take a walk when I know she shouldn't take a walk, or to go to the gym when I know her body's not, she can't do it. But her being a strong-minded person, independent person, it's hard to deter her from doing it. But I'm headstrong also. So we just have this consistent battle. But eventually, I shouldn't say eventually, but in most cases I win. And she listens to me. So in that situation, yes, like I said, with her being so independent and strong-minded, she's used to doing things on her own. This is difficult when it's an impediment when she goes through her flare-ups and things of that nature. And I just, like I said, we're care partners, or the ancillaries of the medical warriors, and they're all medical warriors. We feel the pain. We feel the pain just as they do, indirectly. But it's a situation that you just try to persevere and stay strong for your partner. And I hope all care partners feel the same way that I do. And I'm when I expressed the 3 Ps, and I meant that by poise, I mean I never get too up, and I never get too low. As far as patience, I try to have a high tolerance of stress, because stress is very stressful. And then you have adversity also. And the perseverance comes when you overcome that adversity and you look for a better day the next day. So that's how I do. That's my doctrine, and that's how I deal with it every day, on a daily basis.
Marvin, I've got Margie asking if you would please restate what the 3 Ps are.
Okay. 3 Ps are poise, patience, and perseverance. The poise is for what I just said, to control your moves never get too high, never get too low. Patience, as I said, I have a high tolerance for stress because it's very stressful going through this medical journey, and you're going to have adversity. And the perseverance is to have the intestinal fortitude to overcome that adversity and look for a better day, because the better day will become.
Okay, I've got Vanessa asking, how does each couple deal with family members who constantly ask questions about the diagnosis? And I would also add to that, and how do you deal with people who tell you that they've found this cure for MS on the internet?
I think I mean, I'm not a physician, I'm not a healthcare provider, but we're big fans of science and education. And what we basically did was, it was almost like a campaign, a charm offensive in some ways, of going around and explaining to those that were close to us, and even those people like at work and people that you have to see on a daily basis, to explain, you know, where I am and what may happen and what might look scary and what's not, you know, scary for real. And so I think we just really, at least I did, really tried to educate those around me as much as possible, just to make my day a little earlier or a little easier. I remember dropping the kids off at school, and some of the school moms found out that I was sick. And I had a real issue because they all acted like I was going to drop dead tomorrow, like 1 foot in the ground. Can we bring you a casserole? What do you need? And very well intentioned, but not helpful when you're the person who's like, oh no, am I going to die tomorrow? So we had some growing pains with that, but we basically just kept hitting, you know, the science of it hard and trying to educate people. And I think truly this disease is a difficult one to put in any sort of category, because we all have different symptoms, and mine change daily. So it's almost impossible to ask someone else to understand all of that when I'm still trying to understand it, you know, day to day. But I think that's basically what we've done, and especially with the children, we've just been very upfront, and you know, nothing is masked in secrecy, whether it's a good day or a bad day or a scary day or a not scary day. And I think that there's a lot of value in that sort of honesty too.
For me, I've learned how to stand my ground on what I believe. And so I know that what I believe, family may not believe. So they're going to believe whatever they want to believe. You know. So my next thing that I always ask family members is this: find out what symptoms I deal with, because you can go on Google and you can Google up MS, and it can give you a broad, you know, information of multiple sclerosis, and it may not even be one of the symptoms that I actually deal with. So one of the things that I always say is go to Google. I mean, sit down and have a conversation with me and find out what are some of the symptoms that I deal with, and then that way you can understand where I am, and we can discuss what we believe in so that we can be on the same page. But other than that, you're not going to really understand. You can be reading up on bowel and bladder issues, and it may not be something that I'm dealing with. I could be dealing with cognition. You thinking I'm crazy, and that I may be dealing with cognition issues, and it could be, you know, swollen feet or something. But for me, I had to learn how to stand my ground and just let family know where I am, what I believe, and you know, it's up to them to make their own decision whether or not they're gonna believe with you.
There was a time when I, because I'm strong and strong-willed and strong, and I believe that I can, still climb mountains and everything and all of that good stuff. I don't show often a lot of the symptoms. I don't show the fatigue or whatever is going on. And I remember an incident one day I felt really tired and I just didn't want to go to a particular place. And I said, I'm tired. I struggle today. I don't feel well. And the individual in my family said, I've never heard you say that. It was almost like a reprimand, like, how dare you? Now all of a sudden you're struggling. And I'm like, but I am today. I'm tired today. So they obviously didn't understand what fatigue was and all of those things. And so it got to me that I show myself, I present myself to others a certain way, that when I am feeling a certain way and when symptoms come and attack, that they're looking at me like, I don't know if they didn't believe me or whatever the case is, but and also I work full time and I'm at work and I have the role leader and I'm walking around, and I don't know if people know about MS or not, but whatever it is, they're very helpful at my job. I will say some of them are very helpful. Some to the point where I'm kind of like, I got it. I can do it. I can open the door or whatever. And it's not a bad thing that they're very helpful, but I can tell that they want to ask questions. And I just want them to know that I'm open. I am such an open book. You can say anything to me and I will tell you what's going on. And some people, I think they're afraid to ask me what it is that's like, why does she have this role later? And when some people will say things like, what makes me laugh is when people say things like, I hope you feel better, like, like I got into they think maybe I got into a car accident. Well, I hope you feel better, and one person actually thought that I had sprained my ankle a couple of years ago. And she actually said to me years later, I thought it was when you had sprained your ankle that time. And I'm like, that's like 8 years ago. I'm still on a roll later from 8 years ago from spraining my ankle. She was like, I thought that's what happened. And I'm like, I had no idea you had MS. And it actually opened the door for one other girl whose mother was dealing with MS. And she's like, is that what's going on with you? Oh, I had no idea my mother has MS. And she said, I actually wanted to ask you so bad if that is what was going on with you, because you reminded me of my mother and how, the way you were walking, you reminded me of my mother, but I was afraid to ask you. So I'm so glad you told me. And I was like, wow, okay. So, like being an open book and not being afraid to answer the questions and, just being there.
That's a good point. Teresa, I think this will have to be our last comment because we're right at the top of the hour.
Okay, and Jill, so quickly, I will try to speak as quickly as I can. I too am an open book, and as an advocate and a speaker, I welcome questions. As far as my family is concerned, because I lived with chronic illness my entire life, it was not just off focus to have these conversations. My family were my greatest supporters, and now in addition to my husband, but it was my family who was my core support. So I think my experience was a little different than probably most of the others because I have always lived with chronic illness. And because I've always lived with chronic illness, I know how to show up. I know how to voice how I feel. And I know how to, I'm not going to say fight back, but I know how to address comments that may not be that may not be proper, or comments that just may be ignorant, that people just need to learn. So I think this entire journey, I've learned my way through that, and to speak to that, and to give a voice to that, and to teach other people while I'm doing that.
Thank you. Thank you, all 6 of you. We really appreciate the input that you've given and your stories shared. Our next webinar will be this coming Tuesday, November 15th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We have Dr. Megan Weigel talking with us about enjoyable food choices to help our MS symptoms ramp down a bit. So please join us then, and please stay tuned. If there are further questions, feel free to respond to your registration email, and we will be happy to address them in a timely fashion. Thank you again so much for coming, and we'll see you on our next webinar.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.